All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, I've said it before and I will say it again. There is no political position more likely to get you canceled than advocating for the human rights of Palestinians. During the current violence, editors of 2 Palestinian news outlets based in the West Bank, they were banned from Facebook. 4 editors from the Shahab News Agency and 3 executives from the Quds News Network were blocked from accessing their personal accounts. A Palestinian-American reporter on the ground covering the protests in Sheikh Jarrah saw her account suspended on Twitter. The Israeli government has indicted 145 Palestinians for what they describe as incitement. In fact, the Israeli government and social media giants work hand in glove to target accounts they feel might contribute to violence, or at least those pro-Palestinian accounts that they feel contribute to violence. There's no indication that they're applying the same critical lens to Jewish extremists. In fact, in 2016, Facebook and Israel launched an official partnership to monitor and suspend accounts that the Israeli government does not like. And of course, in perhaps the ultimate cancel culture move, the Israeli government just completely leveled the AP bureau in Gaza, which also housed Al Jazeera, claiming without evidence that Hamas had offices in the building. In fact, the IDF destroyed buildings housing 33 different media outlets. Here at home, as I've covered before, this type of cancel culture and censorship is alive and well. Anti-BDS laws, which seek to prohibit boycotts of Israel, those have been passed in 35 different states. As Glenn Greenwald highlighted, one such law in Texas led to the firing of a children's speech therapist who lost her job because she refused to take a government-mandated oath in support of Israel. So, from social media bans, government-mandated loyalty oaths, job firings, anti-First Amendment laws, and censorship, as I said, daring to challenge the bipartisan Israeli status quo will get you canceled faster than anything. So surely, all of the Republicans and right-wing commentators who are deeply concerned about the scourge of cancel culture must have been righteously fighting on behalf of their canceled brothers and sisters this week, right? After all, they might not agree with the position of Palestinian activists, but a principle is a principle. Am I right? You already know where I'm going with this. Of course, they didn't say anything. And even worse than just staying silent, because the canceled happened this time around to not agree with the right politically, they actually went out on a scalp hunting expedition of their own, working to fire a young journalist for the AP who had the audacity to voice criticism of Israel while she was in college. This all started when the Stanford College Republicans tweeted hyperbolically that the AP had hired Emily Wilder, who they described as a former Stanford anti-Israel agitator, going on to list a plethora of supposed sins, including calling late GOP megadonor Sheldon Adelson a, quote, naked mole rat, accusing the Israeli government of ethnic cleansing, leading a protest against the birthright program in New York, and describing Ben Shapiro as a little turd. Now, this entire line of attack got picked up and reprinted wholesale by the right-wing outlet, The Free Beacon. Next up, Senator Tom Cotton got in on the game, repeating the smear that the AP was teamed up with Hamas, and then linking to the article that also smeared Emily Wilder. Ben Shapiro, Jack Posobiec, and other right-wingers got in on the attack, and before you knew it, the AP had fired Emily for the horrific offense of college-age activism on a topic that she does not even cover at the AP from her post in Arizona. Now, the involvement of Cotton in Wilder's firing is particularly revealing, given that he made a huge amount out of the meltdown at the New York Times after they published his op-ed on policing, which called for a military deployment on the streets of American cities. You will recall that that op-ed led to the reassignment of the deputy editorial page editor and the resignation of editorial page editor James Bennett. Now, personally, I found Cotton's op-ed offensive, disgusting, and disturbing. That's not really the point, or maybe it is the point, in that it actually matters more to stand up against censorship and cancellation when you disagree with the other person's political ideology, and actually especially when you find it actively offensive. In fact, those are the only times that actually really matter at all. That's why I made a point of defending the publishing of that op-ed and criticized the backlash over it. Otherwise, you're just engaging in the same bullshit tribal politics that everyone else is, scoring convenient points for your side where you can, ignoring inconvenient facts when they don't benefit your team. There's no morals, ethics, or principles. It's just power and its mindless pursuit. What sucks is that plenty of liberals are going to use the silence of the right on Emily Wilder's firing to say, see, all these concerns about censorship and creeping authoritarianism and thought police and First Amendment infringements, these concerns aren't actually real at all. They're just part of a culture war being waged by the right. In fact, I think an increasingly intolerant and reactionary climate is a very troubling part of our current cultural moment. one that led to our leading papers dismissing the ever more plausible lab leak theory, as Sagar and I were discussing, out of fear of being on the wrong side of a cultural flashpoint. One that sends the left on continuing rounds of self-annihilation as we constantly try to purify our ranks of the wrong thinkers. One that led the political press to have such groupthink as to scarcely consider the possibility that the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, might actually win. So is the right full of shit on cancel culture and censorship? Yeah, of course, absolutely. They're passing anti-BDS and a rash of new anti-protest laws as we speak. They hate tech censorship only when it hurts them. They hate free speech restrictions only when it stands in their way. Maybe my favorite comments on the topic came from MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, who touted his new free speech social media platform, before quickly adding that certain curse words, porn, and taking the Lord's name in vain would be banned from that free speech platform. The bottom line is this. The right wants free speech so long as they get to define what that means, and no one should take them seriously on the issue. And the thing is, Sagar, that really upsets me, first of all, the issue itself really makes me mad because all she did was college-age activism. The AP hired her knowing her history of activism on this issue, again, on a topic that she does not even cover as part of her job. They offered some bullshit excuse of like, oh, you violated our social media policy, according to her statement, and also what the News Guild is looking into. They would not even define what that social media policy was. It's very clear that they caved to pressure here, and I think that that is completely outrageous. But the other thing that really pisses me off is I actually care about this issue.
Yeah,
I actually think this culture of like being so afraid of having wrong think on any issue, it shuts down legitimate lines of inquiry. It is a real problem. And so when you're completely one side and you only see it as a problem when it's on your political side, you undercut the issue itself and make it so that it's easy to dismiss as like, oh, the right is disingenuous on this and this isn't actually a real problem.
The key actually is that the AP, according to them, is that she was fired for violating the company's social media during her time at the AP. And then according to her own statement, she said, okay, show me which tweet. What was the post that I made? And they would not show it to her. That just, I mean, come on, that's just not within the guidelines of what we're talking about here. And it does seem that they caved. Now, if she had been writing about or making posts about this while she was at the AP in violation of a specific guideline, I think that is a different story.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. And I especially think that it's the biggest story if she were to be covering this issue and to be posting this, then yeah, I think that's fair. But that's not actually what all that happened here. And it's funny to me because you can also see, and this is why the right, going in on these is not the right way to go, which is that it's the same thing that we see with Twitter. What's the problem with Twitter? Is that basically all fringes are completely out of step with policy at all times. What gets enforced? So even if we were technically in violation of whatever the policy is, what actually does get you fired? As the right has seen, they know that if you're on the right, you're the ones who will get taken off Twitter, while if you're not in violation on your left, you will not be taken off Twitter. We've seen this time and time again. So whenever they do this whole, you're technically in violation, the culture of the swarm and all of that, you must reject it. You should not participate in it because, like I said, so even if my corollary was true, even if she was posting, I think it's more defensible, but the manner in which it came about, we cannot have that happen as a society.
Yeah.
As the mob-like pressure. If the AP independently, this is the real thing, if the AP found that she was violating the contract or whatever of her job, and that it was really infringing and hurting her work, and independently was like, oh man, we can't do this, like her boss or something, and noticed problems in her work, then sure, fire her. But that's not what happened here. And that's why I really think the whole culture around the mob swarming is terrible. And if you really do care, you should reject it because it will also, you may have won in this case, you're going to lose every other time. That's another thing I've been trying to emphasize.
Now the precedent has been set. This worked. So you're just going to embolden the next time they want to go after someone.
Wait till some college Republican gets hired by the AP, and you're going to see these left-wing people be like, he expressed support for Nick Sandmann or some white nationalist, supremacist, whatever.
Don't
you're
complain.
dead if you think that you're going to survive.
And you know what? I don't want to hear a word about it because you were part of setting the precedent here, and that's what I just find so obnoxious.
Yeah. Once you start defining things in terms of political speech and around whether something is offensive or not, especially in violation of whatever your policy is, you watch real quick about how fast that's going to come for the right. I mean, it already has, and so that's why I think it's terrible.
Next on Rising, Will Jawando and Philip Wegman. They're here for Team Rising. That's next.